So today we're going to be talking about different types of societies. How have societies evolved from hunters and gatherers to the post-industrial societies that we have today? What's that progression and what does that look like? And here's the reason we need to talk about this, is because there are numerous societies that exist today that are on different places in this evolutionary chart. And when these societies have to interact, sometimes there's a lot of problems. When you have a post-industrial society acting with an agricultural society or a horticultural society, what happens? This is a lot of those. You have the person in Europe who goes to the uncivilized world and there are people living in huts, and what happens there. This is what we're talking about, types of societies. So let's get started. Now, these are your terms to know. Once again, just make a mental note of these. We're going to be seeing these on further summative assessments. Notice that we're talking a lot about networks and close-knit, division of labor, strong, weak ties. We're going to be addressing a lot of those things in this video. Hope you're excited. I'm excited. Let's get started. Now, the first kind of societies that existed were called pre-industrial societies. This is before you had machines and manufacturing in around the 1800s. The main focus of pre-industrial societies is food production. Why? Because it lets you eat. And when you eat, you can expend more energy and do more things. And if you have more food, you can have a larger population. So food's really important to pre-industrial societies. So these pre-industrial societies that we're going to talk about are separated by how they produce food and what technology they're using to produce food. So the most basic level is hunting and gathering, which basically means collecting wild plants and hunting animals. You're not setting up camp. You're constantly moving around because you're constantly searching for food. You can't have any permanent settlements. The reason why is if you stop, you're going to eat all the food in that area, and then you need to leave. So you're constantly moving, you're following animals, you're following food. Because of this, you're not going to have a large abundance of food, so you're going to have very small societies. And the most important social unit is the family. That's because the numbers are so small, so families are so important. As we see some progression, what we now move into is a pastoral kind of society. As people begin to domesticate animals, they have a more steady source of food because they're animals that you don't necessarily have to hunt and find. They're around with you, you herd them. So it's all about domesticated animals: cows, goats, sheep, horses, things like that. Now, this can support larger populations because there's a food supply around. You don't have to spend days and days trying to find food. Now, because you don't spend as much time finding food, you're going to have something called division of labor, which means now instead of all the men hunting and all the women gathering, or all the men gathering and all the women hunting, now, all right, we got a little bit more time in our hands, guys. John, why don't you see if you can crush rocks and make some sort of tools like a blacksmith? Or hey, how about you figure out what's inside of our body so you can fix us if we're sick? Certain people don't necessarily have to worry about finding food. They can specialize in certain skills. Then what we do is now we have not only the domestication of animals, but now we have domestication of fruits and vegetables and plants. People grow wheat, they grow rice, they grow barley, they grow yams, they grow corn, so that there's a food supply that's readily available to them. Now, here's the thing. Now, you're going to have permanent settlements because you don't want to move away from that food because you're growing it, you're going to collect it, you're going to regrow it, so you're not moving around anymore. You're not even moving animals from place to place for the most part. And the main source of food is fruits and vegetables that are grown in a garden. Now, the important thing is the land that's available. If you have a small piece of land, you really can't have a horticultural society. Now, you're also going to have a division of labor here because food surplus, but you're also going to have inequality in wealth and power. Some people are going to have more land than others. Some people are going to have better crops than others. Some people are going to grow different crops. And that's people are going to walk around and go, wait. I like your food better than his food. You're more important. So now there's going to be different levels of wealth and money, because how you're going to buy this food, different levels of influence and power. So here's where our different social classes start to come about. After this, we have agricultural societies, which is horticulture, right? You grow crops, but you're using animals to plow the fields to grow crops. A plow will turn up soil, so it's easier to plant crops. The soil's a little bit fresher. And you also use irrigation techniques where you take water from a river and you move it over to constantly water those crops, so it's less labor intensive to grow those crops. You can have very large populations because with irrigation and plowing you could grow more crops. If you grow more crops, it means more people can be fed. That means more people can be born. That means larger populations. And when you do this, large populations tend to collect. So this is where cities start to come up, and this is when you start to have more advanced technology. Now, what happens is industrial societies emerge, and the emphasis of these societies shifts from food production to the production of manufactured goods, clothes, toys, plastics, everything that we see around us, everything that we see in this room is a manufactured good. Now, this is done with the help of machines, and food production is done by the help of machines, which means food can be made faster and harvested faster and transported faster, which means larger populations. And this is also going to lead to urbanization because it's so important to create manufactured goods. That's where the jobs are going to be, so everyone's going to go to those city centers to get the jobs. So we have large concentrations of people in cities. Because of that, that's pay, that's wages, that's positions. So we're going to see a lot more competition for a social position. This is where you see lower, middle, and upper class societies. Now, a lot of societies are living in post-industrial societies where it's not about manufactured goods, but it's providing services and information. For instance, my job as a teacher is a post-industrial job. I'm not creating anything. I'm providing information. I'm providing services to you, to educate you. Thank you very much. A lot of Western societies are post-industrial. For instance, 73% of the population of the United States work in post-industrial jobs. They're called servers at restaurants. They're called customer service people at stores. They're called anything where you're dealing with people to help them get something done. Now, the great thing is this improves standard of living. You don't have people working in dirty factories or on farms. There's a lot more science and education because to provide that information and services, you have to have knowledge. So education is really pushed. Science to continue to push technology is important. And you also have social equality and democracy. Because as people learn more, people say, you know what, I don't like being told what to do. So I want to have a say in what goes on in our society. So that's why actually all post-industrial societies for the most part have forms of democracy. Because if you don't, and people are educated, you have revolutions. Look at the French Revolution, look at the revolutions that took place in Europe in the 1800s. When people are educated and see the world around them, they want to have a place in that. So that is the evolution of societies from hunter-gatherers all the way over to post-industrial societies. Hope you learned something you did not know before. Thanks for watching.